Okay, welcome to today's second and probably also the last workshop. We must burn the internet down, so we don't need to care about what's coming to happen after me. I was just informed that you had the chance to see the wrong video. So I do expect there will be a right video at some time. My name is Peeter Marvet. I'm working for Zone.de, which is Estonian largest web hosting provider. Nobody believes that my official position there happens to be related to marketing, but I'm mostly having business cards with text like resident hacker, and I work in making things like really fancy stickers like we sell speed, and seems apparently, yeah, and you hacked what, and then things like this. So if anybody is interested in this, then this is my actual work. My hobby work is related to the fact that we have over 40,000 web servers, or our clients' web servers under or running on our platform, and which is something like about 1/3 of Estonian websites. That also means that we are getting, let's say, 1/3 of attention from everybody trying to take down these websites. And often the reasons are pretty simple, like usually nothing being updated, really stupid passwords, and similar common things. But we somehow need to get the sites back up, explain to clients that no, we didn't cause the trouble. The trouble is whoever set it up poorly, or maybe forgot to change the password after putting a website live. So for past 5.5 years, I've had time to play around with a lot of live problems. And I started just looking over shoulder of my colleagues and asking that, how do you automate this process, or how do you make this work easier, or how do you collect the information from different incidents you are seeing, and what we are learning about that. And so I started building some tools. Actually, I think tool is a too nice word for that. You will be seeing my scripts today. They look really ugly because mostly when I'm scripting something, I usually start with just a document named memo, where I'm copy pasting all of the commands I have been repeatedly using. And at some point, I'm slightly redesigning the memo.txt into something.sh, a shell script, or maybe adding something in PHP or doing something like that. And initially, I don't know. I don't absolutely know what I'm doing. And then I'm starting building these things, and I have basically never had time to refactor them during the past 5 years. So having said that, this is the reason why they look pretty ugly. Now, another reason is also because the moment I have a tool to look for some kind of a data on a compromised website, I have so much compromised website data that I'm completely forgetting my tools. I'm just using them from command lines as quickly as possible to find all of the cool hacked contents and how the other party is working. And somehow I've gotten to the point when I think that I can kind of know who's on the other side. So I know that, this is probably this guy who has tricked me in this particular way, which will be also some samples will be seeing and talking about. Or, these are the Indonesian guys, or this is the famous Moroccan hacker. and so on. So kind of getting the picture of what's out there. And I've tried to put together for today a sampling of how we at Zone work in our second level support and security side, trying to understand what's going on websites and when they have hacked, and find out how exactly they have been compromised. Because before you can clean something, you need to actually know how the bad guys got in. You can't plug the holes and find all of the malware before you know what is their tactics, techniques, and procedures, or was it in another order? So, and we'll be looking during this at some websites. Most of them, actually, the most difficult part for this workshop was finding ways to have both anonymized information from real cases, or having a, let's say, synthetic websites to try out, and also have a playground for you to try the tools later. This means that some of the sites where I do have the malware and what we are going to see are sites where after you learn to use the tools, you can actually get the malware. You can probably find some MD5 hashed passwords in the malware, and you can use the same malware to get into the server and screw it up. Please don't be asshole, because some servers have been running for some time, and especially their long history is something which makes them interesting to investigate again. And if you just go there and delete everything or do something, then yeah, it's possible, but please just don't do that. Also, at some part, we'll be having a possibility to launch some droplets on DigitalOcean. Why not on our own hosting? Where, well, I like to, again, I hope nobody's going to use the droplets for anything malicious. You probably can send email from them, because for some examples, I had to keep that allowed and so on. So I hope you don't do that. But anyway, I decided to do it on not on our own platform. So there are a couple of tools I'd like you to try. As was mentioned in the pre-workshop information, we're going to use mostly web browser. The later part will be also including if somebody wants to try things using SSH on some VMs. But I try to keep this thing as simple as possible. I have been using myself for log analysis for a long time, an Estonian tool called Spectix. And to see the logs together with me, there are two ways. One is that you can go to spectix.com, and it's possible to get your own free copy from here. And there is possibility to request the license during, I think, some part in the registration, and you can then run it on your own computer. A desktop edition for personal use, it's nicely free. So yeah, you can request a single user license from here. I have also set up a Spectix dcuff bad, which is a server instance and you can try it in both ways. Also, the files I'll be showing on this decaf-pad installation will remain available after workshops, so you can start easier here, or perhaps start with your own and be ready to use it on the Monday for real work. Now, to get in here, then there is a Google Doc. I was thinking about all of the cool ways to share the access with you, but after some time I found that the easiest way is just to generate a bunch of usernames, which also act as passwords. So if you take from here a random one, let's say homeless hummingbird, then you also, if you pick a password from here, then add your name so everybody can pick a different username, and there is no problem of you running under the same account. And you can then log in here. And perhaps, I don't know, we didn't need to keep seeing these things. Now, another option is downloading the Spectix and installing it, which is actually pretty easy on OS 10. You just need to drag it to applications folder, and then you launch it. There is, I think, for configuration, there is only thing you need to configure is your MaxMind Geolite license key for getting the country and AS name databases. So you need to go to the MaxMind's website to log in and create a key. But oops, you see also my key. I can replace it later. So you can also, if you did a screen grab, use that one. And once you have it installed, you can open it. You will be asked for two things. You'll be asked to agree with the license and enter the license key, which will be sent to an email, or perhaps somebody has already done that before. And this is the place where we can actually start looking at data. First, we can perhaps start with a story that actually brought me to this presentation. And this is when I look at, where's that? The CTimer decaf-pad EU site. Now, when you go there, there should be also something on the front page. Yes. So this is actually my tool, which I'll be showing, which I have been actually using for all of these years to try to understand what's going on the web servers. And the name CTimer, there is also, when you look at the this files part, there is also possible to go and find this tool on GitHub. So there's the PHP script, which is just something you can drop on a random web server and see what are the C times. So what's the story of that? When I started looking at how the websites, what is the information that is the easiest way to actually understand what has been done. So I have here two examples. I think let's say start from example 2. What it does is it basically gathers from the file tree all of the C times which is the latest change time of inode, and completely different from the time you're seeing in LS or looking at over SFTP at the site. This is the actual change time of file or its parameters. Now, I was looking for a long time to find cool examples that are cool and where the problems are not obviously visible. Unfortunately, I didn't find them. So we have to do with some examples that do have their problems clearly visible, like this one. This is actually a site that I was helping to clean up. I think this file is from October last year. I had cleaned up it earlier, and that guy came back. So apparently by the sound, it's coming by some kind of police or ambulance is driving by. So it's grouping the times. We could do it also other ways. For example, you can just go to the server and do a find and print out the C times and get the list and sort and look at that. But looking at a long list of these times, even sorted, often the server contains tens of thousands of files, and it was impossible to discern what's important and what's not. So after having actually looked at that for some time, I found that, what if I group the files into some kind of clusters by their changing time? Because and turns out that was exactly the thing that made it possible to see into what is happening inside these deep directory trees of web applications. So here, for example, is this particular website. There has been somebody logging in at 23:12 on 5th of October, uploading into different parts of website, backdoors and not only backdoors, web shells and so on, changing for some reason htaccess, and also dealing with something which is called dumpsec. The dumpsec is something I'm going to show you later. It is really a dump solution to a problem. In this case, what the intruder did, what dumpsec is doing, then I was interested in understanding how they got in, because looking at the logs at that time, I saw they actually came and logged into the WordPress. So I installed a simple PHP script, which is just saving in a log file the information about who is logging in, to make sure that I know, because in WordPress it may be later difficult to understand who actually logged in and whose password is compromised. I've also used it to actually capture the passwords, but in this time the guy actually came in, looked from the log files, he launched the PHP info, checked that I had prepended this dumpsec script, and changed the script to just comment out one line, which was doing the logging. So as a result, I didn't have a log about how they had logged in, and I believed actually they had been logging in using somebody's password. Turns out they had actually captured earlier the SQL password, and they were using some kind of SQL administrating tool to change the password, log in, and then move on. But these are the files, and I think I have actually the files also here, so I can show the same files which are here, like for example, the autoload is looking at like that. So that's definitely malicious. So, and the rest of the files are pretty comparable. But the question often is twofold. I know the change of the times, but again, going and checking all of these files is difficult to find their folders, collect the samples, and so on. Because my interest was actually to find a way to create Yara rules about what I talked on the previous CitySec meetup to learn about what the guys are doing there. So the next thing what I did was I added the possibility here to actually tag the files I find interesting, and that's the thing we are going to try soon on our own as well. And the moment I have marked the files, I get the possibility to download the list. And here, one moment, I'll be showing that also. So basically, we have the list of the files. Then it's possible using rsync or something like that. You could get the actual files. Or if you want to try that later on your own web forensic tasks, then you can get from here the CTimer fetch, which is nicely taking this list, and you can over SSH fetch the files from another server. But yes, but that's not all. For today, I somehow happen to not so much just prepare for the workshop, but I also changed the CTimer. So I have a website to play, and it's called Wuhan. Like, let's say it's the cybersecurity level or cyber safety level for laboratory for testing all kinds of things. And this is something I have been playing around for some time. I just registered the domain so nobody will grab and use it for a malicious use. And then one day I needed somewhere to put a honeypot, and I kind of thought it's a interesting name for a honeypot. So this one has one additional functionality, and let's see, where's my editor or FTP, so I can. So this, I need to go to this site to change one key, which I hadn't changed before. And so the code itself looks like that. And I have here the, okay. I have already allowed the download possibility. So with this tool, again, this is something which is meant for using for, let's say, analyzing a website. So it is basically a dangerous tool, meaning that if you forget it on a server, then it is possible that somebody who knows that you have named it CTimer2 can access that and access your files. And as I'm going to show, also the possibility to download the files it's possible they can access whatever files are on the server. Having said that, it does have a couple of safeties. First one is that it must not be named CTimer. If it is, then it will be renaming itself, or I don't know, herself, himself, themselves, by adding a random hash, and also it must not have been on server more than I think there is somewhere 22 times something, I think, for 1 day or something like that. Then it will delete if accessed. So there are a couple of safeties. Other than that, it is a tool that can be misused. So now the question to workshop attendants is that what do you think has happened on this site, and what are the problems you can see? So you can access that at wuhan.de/ctimer2.php, and you can click around. It's possible to see different packs of files changed, and it's possible also to download these files. So you can, we can, for example, see. Okay, there is, for example, there is an interesting file called cuteness overlord, which possibly seems interesting. Okay, WSO is also a name of a web shell, so that's also something to possible to look. So if you find here things that are interesting, it's possible to download them. Let's see if it worked nicely. So I do have here this zip file, which very nicely contains all of the components from a particular website. I'm adding to them always the hash. This is the hash of this particular file. Why I'm doing that? Because often, let's say, the compromised index.php may be in various folders. So then if it's the same index.php which is compromised, it will be having the same hash and nicely in the same flat directory tree. If it's a different index, each of them will have a different hash, and it's again. And there's also the path list, so there is possibility to check where the files came from. So has anybody opened the cuteness overlord already? And I think this should be cuteness overlord, probably was the index, yes. So it's a very cool shell that looks like that. So there is a, what's the name of language? I think it's called brainfuck or something like that, which is making completely unreadable code out of different parentheses and marks. And this is derivative of that in PHP. And if I recall correctly, I think it will be using the parameter of underscore from accessing it to actually provide shell access. So this is one thing why I told that please, if you see now there is a shell, do not use that to do something bad to the server, so we can continue using that. So this is a an example of the files that can be retrieved this way. So, and then this is actually what we are often doing. So, but what else has happened here? How to find out? We can see that there are some file changes, and if we probably download these files, we'll also find that there are some kind of attached, they contain some form of malware, but I'm also checking the workshop questions and workshop chat. If anybody wants to comment or ask, then feel free to ask there. So when I'm looking to my left, then I'm probably looking at either of the chats. So how to find out what happened here, and possibly I see a pattern of changing functions.php files. So I think these things are actually also connected. Something has happened there. Now to go on with that, let's, and especially now that we know the time, because often for me, the main question with log files has been how to find the actual time when to look for something in the log file. Because with these sample files we have, everything is easy because they're pretty small, but real log files can be gigabytes, and actually without zooming in into particular time moment, it may be very difficult to find. Also because a lot of traffic is actually different kind of actors trying to get into the website. So what is the actual attack and what is just something that looks attack is a difficult question, or difficult to discern. But here is my friend Spectix. Now I'm using the pre-installed version on server. That's running the server instance. Actually, with your, if anybody gets the private key, you can also run it on the server side. It's running on port 8000 something. I have just put Apache in front of that to do the TLS termination and serve on port 443. And if you want to try the thing on your own instance, then the files that are the ones which are on the shared server are also available here. So here is the folder called logs, which you can just download and unzip somewhere, perhaps on your desktop. And there is the labs, which if you have your own Spectix instance, you can go into the shared folder and upload the zip. It will unpack everything, presumably, at least it did on my case, on the same things that we are going to see on the shared version. Here, also, when you are doing your own on your own instance trying, then in data stores, it's possible to, okay, I can't, I'm logged in as a homeless hummingbird, so I can't change that, but I can probably add a data store to my own user. So we could name it, use file. Store names is, for example, Spectix. Okay, Spectix, I think, okay. I think I have in, okay, it works even here. I have made in the, Juice is telling that Win Security real-time protection off for Wuhan samples. Okay. This was the one which you downloaded from website, and yes, indeed, it does have PHP malware. So the fact that your antivirus virus detected inside the zip file this information, this is completely correct. This is something which makes it pretty difficult to deal with PHP malware and have antivirus active, because half of my samples would be probably lost by that time. But anyway, I'm creating a file store. It is possible to access the files just also directly, but all of the samples are presuming I'm using the store name named Spectix. And here you can point to the, oh, interesting way. Can't, okay, currently as a user, for some reason, I'm not allowed, but but on your own instance, you have a folder icon, so you can point to where was the file that you downloaded from these files. Now about Spectix, why I like it. I like it for a couple of reasons. First, it works very nicely with all of the compressed log archives, meaning that especially in cases when I'm dealing with mostly with let's say such a incident response, I don't need to have these things online in something like in expensive unpacked format. I can have just everything in zip files and then see how it goes on from there. I can show you the log files folder. This is what you are getting if you download. So, and we have the same things on the server side. So some files are open log files, some files are zipped. Like here's a bunch of mod security audit logs. So it doesn't matter if they are compressed or not. Perhaps I should have compressed them also for a demo, but forgot. Also, most of the error log files are raw, like they came from my servers. The access log files that might contain people's actual IP addresses have been anonymized by shifting the IP address by some random number. I think the only exception is my own IP address, which I replaced back. So we can tell that we are not sharing potentially private data like IP addresses with timestamps. So this is the structure of the log files, and usually they are of course much larger than here. And here under shared, I have prepared some lab exercises to try through and understand how the Spectix is working. Perhaps I put the summary as 0, but let's start from the one which is lab 01. Again, I presume it should very nicely work with several users trying to use it at the same time. So yeah, I see some people have taken their accounts, so there must be somebody else also on the Spectix here. What Spectix is doing is it's parsing the log files. So for that, I have prepared some patterns. This is because sometimes servers tend to have slightly varying log file formats. For example, date or Apache's access file can have different custom parameters that might be interesting for somebody. So for that reason, I have here under shared patterns, I have some of more common and less common files. how I usually start working with a log file is I start with, we can start with input data. I can find the spectics. I can find from here the, what's the spectics data store. There is, for example, Technocrat. There is an access log. Technocrat has been my own brand for years. So I found an access log. I can prepare here a pattern, and apparently it does have some idea. It looks like Apache access log. It actually is catching the wrong access log, but we can see that it found the pattern from here, and we already get some kind of result from that. Now that we have the pattern ready, we can actually use the pattern and go into preparing a query with that. So we can take the same access logs and check how it works. I'm not going to stop on that part for longer because that's why I prepared these lab tasks. So in our case, it starts very simple. The stream is something that starts with the @ So I'm telling that the stream is parsing using this pattern that I showed you, the files from Technocrat's access log. This is actually my own blogs and a couple of other sites access log for past, I think, 4 or 5 days. And having defined source, we could, of course, just without that, but I'm using this pattern for next example as well. So we have defined the stream coming from the log file parsed, and then I'm going to do some things with that. I'm usually liking to sort it by timestamp because at this time I have single log, but often I have multiple separate logs for HTTP and HTTPS connections, so they might not be reading in correct time order. So I'm doing a sort timestamp, and basically I can add here select and use all of the fields, but by default it will be also selecting everything that's coming from the stream. So this is now my web's access log in nicely human readable format. You can basically, if you want, you can export that as CSV and I don't know, look at it in Excel. There are occasions when I'm sharing these log files exactly as CSV or like Excel files to make some kind of selections of log files easier to follow. But yes, this is basically the simple view. We have host IP addresses and all of the parts of the log file nicely broken apart. In our log files, we have something a bit more special. We have also request ID to PHP's fast process management FPM, and we have a wall time that request took to run. Now, why is that cool? That's cool because when we are looking at the log file, currently, yes, the log file in this case happens to be a lot of bots, meaning that most of the requests are actually running PHP, but there are some that are not. For example, okay, for whatever reason, the root for I might be having a cache there, and here's okay. Here's definitely a what was the correct pronunciation? GIF image, which probably doesn't need any kind of handler to process. Now, why is that important? It's important because when you are looking for some kind of bad actors on a website, you probably are not caring about anything that is fetching static files. There could be some kind of denial of service attacks based on that, but they're not that common. So we could use here something like filter. Let's say let's filter out anything that where URI contains .gif. So pretty self-explanatory, I hope, from the syntax viewpoint. So you can actually see that now the GIF file should be gone from here. There are still some files that are not running PHP though. But I've tried before I learned about using this PHP handler running time, that assembling everything that's possibly static as a, let's say, regex match or something like that, a filter, is time consuming. It still leaves in some things that are perhaps not important for analysis part, but also I've in real life seen actors on websites assign to, let's say, to CSS files a PHP handler, so they can nicely have PHP running from inside the CSS file. So actually excluding things, files by just extensions is definitely not a good choice. So much better for me to do that is, considering we have here request ID and time, which are 0. So we can do filter out time is null. So this means that, so yeah, 2 else. Now I should have nicely everything in my log files that is coming from or is running PHP, so possibly could be a problem that can be attacked by somebody, or is in the process of being attacked. Should you have any questions or want me to stop on something, just mention on any of the Discord channels, workshop chat or workshop questions, and I hopefully will notice that. So this is a simple view of looking at that. I've also, this is now what I'm mostly using myself. Is we can now look at, for example, the same technograd.net. So, and it was access.log. I've forgotten to prepare that part or save that. And for that, I'm usually keeping in my sample scripts. So when I'm working daily, I'm usually having these pre-prepared templates that I'm using to kind of look ad hoc on any kind of log files. So here I have the better view. So I'm already excluding everything that's null, but I'm still keeping in everything that has possibly a response of indicating error to get it everything that might be interesting for me into the output. So what I'm usually doing is exactly like that. So I do have here a bit better ordered components, starting with time it takes to run, URI, response codes, and so on. So I can start to distill the information into or exclude the things that are perhaps not important. For example, here in this picture, I think the Yandex Yandex bot coming from the Yandex's a network range. I believe this is actually Yandex, so I can safely ignore it. Doing such ignores or filtering in or filtering out is pretty simple. So you can just right click on that and do that. You filter as Yandex or you filter out as Yandex. So already a better picture. Also, let's see what's here. This is petal search. This is Huawei's, I think, Huawei's Google, because they can't distribute Google's official apps anymore. So they have their own search engines and everything. So I think I can probably also exclude that. In fact, I have already done most of these things here. So because I often need to, or I have often needed to do these things, then I have already prepared and commented out some of the parts, which make it easier to interesting why it didn't and filteries and it should be probably not matches. Yes, now we have gotten rid of these particular addresses. Why I'm having a positive and is probably because sometimes especially this Huawei cloud has caused large server loads, so I've been probably looking for them from different perspective. And now we're starting to see more interesting access happening. Also, okay, we could also probably, I know it's not nice to just exclude everything from Estonia, but I don't believe there is much risk coming from there. And also I could filter out by our own AS name. So this will be probably the server doing the cron tasks against itself. Again, and with each of these filterings, we are starting to see better and better picture about the activities that are going on. And as currently, we can see that a large proportion of the traffic hitting my website is coming from some guys who are looking for ways to compromise the website. Mostly there is the VP login, and we are going to see that more later. And here, I think this is a especially cool path. So there is the scanning of the authors. So Polaris Technocrat, Polaris, this is actually also running on another name, so I can show you the website. It is actually, its main name is polarisyachts.de. And when we go to the author will be redirected to user named page. So this is exactly how, let's see, this was the proper window, how they are enumerating the users. And having enumerated the users, within a couple of seconds, they will start trying to log in. As you see, the logins are usually done in sets of less than, I think, 3 or 6. Possibly in some cases, they are also trying to find when they are getting blocked. But you are also seeing here that there is a possibly 320, and there is a different IP, different country, different AS name. So while it is possible they're completely different actors, we'd need probably to look at a longer time frame to understand that. But what I'm repeatedly seeing that all of these login attempts start with scanning for authors and then doing couple of login attempts and then switching IPs. So most of the common solutions like, okay, let's block the after, I don't know, third or sixth attempt are clearly not working. There are some actors that are doing massive brute force attempts, but they are pretty rare. I'm much more seeing this kind of pattern in log files. Another one is that it's taking the logins and then it's doing the XML RPC, which, as we'll be seeing later, is a method of using, in theory, either escaping the login lockout or using a single call to do multiple authentications with one call. And usually you are seeing from here, interesting thing, there is also the login is taking 69 milliseconds and the XML RPC call is taking 145 milliseconds. So either because of bad implementation in WordPress or because it had multiple usernames to test, it is taking longer time. And also we are seeing that compared to VP login, the XML RPC is causing on larger processor loads on hosting servers. So XML RPC is something that definitely is better locked down. Let's see if we can find from here something else. There is somebody looking for some kind of DB cache. Again, we are seeing a lot of IP addresses from different hosting providers. So I've been really thinking about disabling access to my websites from hosting providers' network ranges. There are some exceptions, like for example, if you are into the search engine optimization, then Ahrefs and those are also using, of course, hosting providers' clouds. But this is not a thing to worry if you are not doing active SEO analysis on your website. It will be just doing work for somebody else's SEO. So let's see if we can see something else interesting. I have not added here one more thing which I wanted to show you later, but okay, I'll jump over to Lab 5, which has a pretty similar selection, but so we are excluding requests that are not interesting. We could copy here some more from the previous lab, but this one is interesting because it's adding to the select to all of the columns that we are looking at also something called row color, which is using the case statement to see if there is Tor IP in use. How it is doing that is that when we previously were using one stream, which came from our log file, then here I'm defining another stream, which is using cached version of Tor exit nodes, which is coming from, I think, somewhere here in the utils. So we can always get from here the exit nodes. But here, I think when we scroll, we should soon see also some color. Oh, sorry. And then there is also the joining of the store to current source and using the syntax, which is pretty comparable to SQL. So here we have, and do we have also something coming up with the Tor? It should be of some nice color. Okay, I can do not the left join, but do the join, then we'll be seeing only the IPs of Tor. So, okay, here seems that in this version there is less. Okay, they probably cleaned the log files a bit too much. Or which log file I'm looking for? No, I think it had more. But anyway, we are seeing the similar access to the XML RPC files coming from the Tor networks. So this is often indicator that this is not legitimate traffic hitting us. Looking more at things that are targeting us, then here are some other samples to use. For example, I've been thinking that what are actually they looking in addition to looking for login possibilities and compromising via that. So I devised a pretty simple pattern that is taking again my access log, and it is matching URL to some places under WordPress that should not run usually PHP, because most of the WordPress components coming from plugins or themes should be running using the built-in routing mechanism. So I'm looking for things coming from themes or accessing things from themes that are not part of conventional browsing, or looking for PHP files in strange places. So, and in this way, I'm able to, okay, and again, filter out some bots that might be also happening into wrong places. So let's see. Here is traffic that is definitely looking very strange. There are some kind of plugins in which they are trying to access the index files. So this might not be exactly yet attack, but it might be just enumeration of existence of some kind of a plugins. So, and as you see, I have currently on the same server a lot of subdomains. So, and I'm using this example exactly because it does have a bit more interesting traffic than perhaps my own blog in a single view would have. So there are other things. Okay, this one is interesting. This is apparently a path traversal, or what it's local file inclusion kind of attack, looking for VP config. So how do they get their database credentials to attack in another way, like was actually the example2.com sample that I showed you earlier. This is probably through some kind of access of being able to access the config files. And yes, probably, yeah, WordPress File Manager had a large security issue last year, 1st September 2020. So they are looking for that, and so on. Now that we actually do know that there are scanners looking for malicious files, my next question is what else they are looking for. So there is another lab which is now doing things like it's using the source, and scanners are from the source, this selection like I showed, and it's also doing the grouping by IP. So we can see also here, we have here a lot of different access attempts. We can do here that we group it by IP and see what are the okay, there was this one. So yes, so we have 33 unique IPs, so perhaps there is no point in selecting the row, but we can select like we do in the SQL, select the IP, count them, and perhaps also we can take the country code of IP and AS name of the IP. So in this way, we are seeing that we can also group, and we can add here sorting by count descending. So we are seeing the IPs that access these specific URLs that are definitely not for good people to look at. So here we are doing basically the same thing that I did here. We are using generating one source stream of scanners, and then we are joining it, and not left joining, but joining to get only the rows that are problematic from my user set. So now I have been able to expand my view of what the malicious actors are doing. So we are seeing that they are looking for VSO shell forgotten by somebody there. These are the plugin things we know. Indo exploit, I think this is some kind of probably Indonesian gang. There is up.php, pretty common name for uploading something, and so on. So we are seeing what are the files they are using. Some of them are, I think we'll be seeing things like not sure what's that. That's probably mistaking my WordPress for Joomla or something like that. I think BlueStork is somebody's theme. Looking again for forgotten shells. For some people like to put shells inside for PHP inside theme folders. Pretty common thing because old themes they have been installed, but they are rarely getting updates. So a good place for hiding. And I think when I looked at the file earlier, no, this is probably, I can just click and see. It doesn't have any great user agent, but it seems to be some kind of a stupid scanner for whatever reason. But I wanted, here's a cool search by the same guys. They're looking for again for SQL credentials by looking for backup copies of config files, and let's see if they are looking okay. This now looks like probably some kind of somebody's backdoor. Again, a list of files that they have probably found common. There is also usually a search for SQL files, but I think that this time we are not seeing the things get much more interesting when you are looking at the log files for a longer time, but for sharing here in the workshop, I picked a shorter time. So this is basically how you can gain more information from the log files. by being able to actually look at them in nice tabulated format, not like your usual access logs are single lines, and you can't follow the parts. So now coming back to the part of how we started with the question of what happened at my Wuhan sample site. So we can come back here, and all of the I'll show you one more thing before I move to the Wuhan. Is I have here a summary, which is a different kind of accessing the log file. So instead of just having the list and looking at that, I'm doing a select, grouping the information by some period, because usually it's 1 minute, and when there are campaigns hitting e-shops, then I'm often doing that by 1 second. But this is discreting the time by 1 hour period, and I'm getting all of these counts of different requests for 1 hour. So what I'm calculating the average wall time, which pretty much shows how well the server is performing. If the average runtime is getting over 1 second, then it means that every request is taking 1 second. And when you have 8 cores, you can basically have 8 requests at the same time, which probably will be a problem if you happen to have more than 8 requests per second. And also I'm looking for long and short requests. I'm looking for access by bots, and depending on occasions, I'm also looking at different response codes, but usually having error is good enough. Okay, and also there may be some kind of other reasons to count. But let's see what I will see from here. So we have nicely seen that there is a constant flow with the exception of some time. Looking at table to find when there is higher than usual access is probably pretty difficult. So that's where I'm using charts. So from this chart, I'm seeing that most of the day is pretty boring, but something has been accessing or probably indexing the site this night. Especially there is around 5 a.m. there is more traffic than usually. So we can now go to take one of these better views, or I can just use the same file location and do like I'm doing when I'm usually looking at things. I'm using the detail view. I'm giving it the same file name. I'm telling it to look for today. Oh, sorry, 05. Oh, sorry, from 05. 15:05 in the morning for 1 hour, and let's see what the and I need to comment out the filter here. So now I'm nicely in this time frame. I hope that I did see access, and I'm seeing also Estonian IPs from server farm trying to log in, probably not one of the real users. And there is Shenzhen. So let's see if we can also see some kind of, I think we should be seeing at this time frame some form of website scanning that is not related to breaking in, but somehow I'm currently not seeing that. Let's take a 1 minute period. Can we spot the actual access here? So it was today, and the traffic has been higher than normal in these. And here's also the blue is accessing these static files, so we can see and find out when exactly has been the scanning of the static files. So the highest point has been 35. So let's see again. We can come here and see at let's say 30 for 10 minutes, and see if we can. Okay, and here, because it's static files, then we probably must look at all traffic to see what's going on here. And who is scanning? Come on, can we? It's yeah, okay. This is doing redirect with no time used. So perhaps what we saw earlier in the graph is for some reason access to XML RPC that is doing a redirect somewhere. So it possibly logged as static access. So contrary to what we saw earlier, we are also seeing access that's coming from the same IP and doing a lot of requests. So we are basically seeing that in the same second we have like five requests per second trying to brute force, and even more, yeah, but okay, about 5 per second trying to brute force into Henrik Ronema's old blog. Henrik is, we were he's a journalist. We have been producing radio together. He's currently running one of very successful Estonian also technology and other news sites, but he's not using the site anymore. So this is how you can actually zoom in onto a particular place of interest in your log files. Now, coming back to the Wuhan example. So we are here, and we'd like to understand what has happened at 24th of February, which is, by the way, Estonian birthday of First Republic of Estonia. So thinking that why on this day, I think I have been preparing for some kind of a presentation then, using the free bank holiday to do that. But and I'm very often using exactly it in this way, that I'm coming here, I'm looking at the change of the files, and based on that, deciding at what point of logs I need to look. And this is especially important because this time, yes, unfortunately, this is at the beginning of this server's lifetime. Often it's somewhere in the middle, but looking at today's log files, you would have not guessed that the actual compromise has happened more than a year ago. But looking at these file change times grouped, it is visible that something has happened here. Now let's come back to the Spectix. This is the local version, but we can look at it here. Which view we should? I think we should maybe have the better view, and this time really use the log files from the server. I'm looking only on files that are running PHP, because that's probably the only way to change the files there. And let's see what has happened there. Okay. I thought I changed the log file, but anyway. There are the delete me's, another problem. This is actually the installatron server doing the install. So apparently somebody is installing the WordPress. Unfortunately, at the start of this log file, so it's too easily visible. And the log files where it's not so easily visible are unfortunately not at my discretion to share publicly in this way. So I'm seeing there is also somewhere a login. By the way, the interesting thing about WordPress login is that you are not going to find successful logins by looking at web login answering with response code 200. The correct way to look at is if the response is 302, because then the user is being redirected to VP admin. So this is the filter to look at when there has been an actual login. So we are seeing that the login has been around 1320. But now I'm interested in all of these IPs from Zone, because this one is actually the installatron, but let's see if we can see the exact login point from here also. So there is this successful login, and then there is access to site named nulled, which accidentally is the site where I did install the nulled WordPress theme. If you want to try this kind of compromise yourself, then the easiest way to self-own is to go to something called, let's take a incognito window, go to Vesta themes, and it's pretty easy to find. You can find here WordPress themes and plugins. So I think in this case, I was using a bakery theme. For whatever reason, it was bakery theme. If you want to try with this specific theme, so this is also available here under the files. You can, if you have a throwaway WordPress later, you can try installing that and seeing if you're seeing the similar pattern there. So, but we were here. So we are seeing something which is very common in two different scenarios. We are seeing somebody logging in, and okay, this is again something I should have removed, or actually I did remove, but forgot to upload the right file. So there is compression tests, admin themes, and here is the theme admin. So this is the 1442 when I have uploaded this particular theme, and it has been activated. Now let's see if I also was correct in connecting the two timelines. 1443. So 1443 is something that is happening, but hey, this is a different site. So apparently when I did activate the theme, it also looked for other installations on the same server. So perhaps I can show you how the server looks like. If I open from here the Wuhan server. So that's the server, and we have here, there is this nulled theme or site to which I installed the backdoor. There is a separate one with more backdoors. We'll see later. And here, completely in different location, is this safe, which has also gotten compromised because it is going a couple of levels up and then looking for all kinds of functions.php and other files and WordPress installs and compromising them all in a single go. So I found the compromise of that, and I think the 1422 should have been one of the earlier, and the 1320. Did I see something with these times as well? Yeah, it seems that 1320 has been the initial setup. So there are things. The problems currently with this this file is this change C time is that there have been some later actions. I think when I restarted the site, the installatron did some updates. So some of the information has been overwritten, so that sometimes are wrong, but I still see from here the changes that have happened there. As mentioned, it's possible to download the files and components. Apparently, this is something which is called WPVCD. If you're looking for this name, you are going to find a really nice white paper from, I think, WordPress, where they have described how it works. We can also see it here. Again, let's see if I get it working using incognito window. So there should be a site called 0200.de. Aha, that's already strange. Looks like maybe comparing to, I don't know, Cloudflare, but no, in this case it is not. It's this site which probably has a bunch of already errors. So it's trying to, let's see, it's trying to access different sites. And completely not on my site. So that's a sign that there's something going on the Wuhan.ee. I think occasionally I've been able to get even better results, having yeah, most of the things are Rumber is gonna. I would need to learn how to use presented tools in this workshop. Seems like everything I need is strings and grep. Well, yes, you can do a lot of things with grep until you know where you're looking for. And if you're doing daily looking at Apache log files, you can presumably also find things with grep. But sorting things out from deeper log files usually is something that with just grep gives you just a lot of garbage, and without being able to look at it with a bit more visual tools, it is time consuming to actually find the actual bad actors. There is a pretty common problem that when people do clean up WordPress sites or other hosting sites, they are missing the point when the malicious actor has gotten in. And when you do leave some of the pieces of malware behind, then the problem is that they will be back usually within the next 24 to 48 hours. No, okay. I hoped I'll be presented also with some porn, but unfortunately we are not getting porn this time. So next time, perhaps more porn. Now, coming back to this look and trying to understand how to okay, no problem in just starting. It's cool to see somebody's actually in the chat. Sometimes I kind of feel pretty alone if nobody is throwing things at me. But now to look at how to make this same thing more interesting is that, let's see, we are in the one site, and we have here the C timer. Again, now the next task is that when the actual change logs is more complex than in this case, when it's kind of synthetic, there is often the question that why did the files change? Has somebody been tampering with them, or is it just a WordPress or plugin update? With plugin updates, it's usually pretty easy because plugins are replaced by basically deleting the folder and adding it back again. So you're going to see a batches of plugins updated at the same time. Now, yeah, thanks, Joachim. Now I am dropping here another file, which is another project I actually completed for this workshop. That's a whitelist of something like 5 megabytes. It's the whitelist of all of the WordPress install files from version 3, and also I think 10 most common plugins and 10 most common themes. This repo currently is not public, but on my side it's doing a nightly scan. So if anybody needs a list of whitelist for WordPress, and hopefully soon also for other things, then I can presumably help you. Now, coming back to here and doing a reload, then my fancy tool is adding one more. I apparently forgotten to remove the zip files, which is compressing while I was preparing it. But we'll be seeing here that some of the lines are now also, when you refresh the ctimer PHP file, they are gray, meaning that they are of not importance. They are in the white with a whitelisted MD5 hash. So in this way, it's easier to understand what parts of the changes are naturally occurring updates. And it has actually really been a real pain in us understanding when looking at things and guessing what looks like a possible problem and what doesn't. But when I did HealthSec presentation, I think it was in January, I told you about how I learned to write Java rules for detecting malware on websites. So this time I also have additional file, which is the actual scan log of Yara. And when I, let's see, look at that, then it has, it is looking listing all of the files that have strange contents. For example, these are base 64 encoded common words, common WordPress functions, and so on. And unfortunately, I'm not yet ready to share my URLs, which are completely made for the situation when it doesn't work nicely to use grep, because most of the malware tends to be pretty difficulty greppable because the patterns are a bit more complex, and for that URLs come nicely. So in this case, when I have in the same folder the list of URL scans, I can easily see also what are the found shells in this particular installations, and I can just look for them. So, okay, here seems that also inside this part that was just like updated, there are presumably also different kinds of backdoors. Considering it's named backdoor in Estonia, I think this is something with what I have left there on purpose, but we are also seeing here some other backdoors or shells. There is something inside this WWP VCD from that time, and yeah, that's probably all that it found. It's all because in this case, I just check the files in the main folder. I can also very easily go a level higher and see if no, I'm not sure if it will match with the same search also, but okay, seems it did match. So I'm seeing also, aha, okay, that's pretty strange name for a file. So yeah, definitely I'm seeing more matches now because the matches were for a longer path. How I'm usually actually getting the files or these scans done is of course from command line. Let's see if I can show you an example of that as well. The problem is that I don't want to show you exactly the computer I'm using at the moment. So I'm sharing it like that. So usually I'm and the same repo is using has the same scripts for shell scripts, so I can do also the same things remotely, and from the shell accessing other servers and access the data. The files, the scan file and the timer file and the jar scan file again done usually like that, but it's just a part of automations to make things run faster. If anybody is interested in that part of getting their work done faster, then we can later talk about about that a bit more. So this is on that side about the Wuhan and finding how it was self-owned. The same pattern of login and uploading is often very common, also not when it's cell phone, but also the result of all of these web VP login, PHP, and XML RPC tests. Now, let's see how we can do the same things on the server side, and what else, what other kinds of logs we could analyze and which are interesting. For example, the same question as I showed you, there was a link to something called dumpsec with the example2 file. Then what the hell is dumpsec? Dumpsec was a tool that I created when I was probably really dumb. So it's basically a script which can be auto-prepended to PHP using .user.ini to run it, and it will be logging everything posted to log file in a way to make it possible to see whose password has leaked or something like that. As I mentioned, the guy who was on that site found that and commented out the line I used for logging. So not that clever. Dumpsec is a really dumb solution, and if somebody gets in, it's of course very easy to circumvent that. It does have some protections for not logging the passwords. You can, of course, make the arrays empty and log also passwords. Logging passwords on the user accessible server is not a good life choice, but we make our choices often not thinking too much about that. And worse than that, I do have also another site which has dumpster look. So I have been actually trying to understand what the users are, what the attackers are trying to do when they are doing all of these WordPress login attacks. And here we are seeing a lot of attempts that all look very similar. So as we saw, they have been collecting or enumerating users. So what to do when you have users? Let's just try. Maybe the user has username also as a password. Admin. There is, this is now the version of XML RPC used for password brute forcing. So this is the simple VP get user blocks used by, I think there is user is admin and trying password like that. Here is a bit more interesting version of using system multicall to try different logins. When you actually look at this method, you will be seeing that the username is login in square brackets and the password is 123 login. So apparently the clever hackers who are using this multi-call possibility are completely wasting just everybody's time. Here's also an interesting thing. They think that my username is Peeter Marvet. I'm not missing. And when you Google, there is probably for this missing, there is some specific case why it is. I think there is some kind of charter encoding issue or something like that, causing that in, I think, Go language browser or some kind of specific scripts which are doing. So again, we are seeing the same pattern over and over again, adding some year numbers and doing absolutely the simplest possible password. It's even not brute forcing, it's just gentle forcing. Now, there are other ways to achieve that. And for that, if somebody wants to try more, we can also try to see the same thing on server side, and some more tricks that I can't demonstrate here. For that, I have a way to launch. The name gun is just making the nice names. And zero.hack.e is actually something that I used a couple of years ago for some non-CTFT based CTF. So there is somewhere a 0 day, which you can use to get into the WordPress. For today, I also made you some users, so you don't need to find the 0 day first. There is just this question of booting up the target VPS on as a DigitalOcean droplet. So I probably, if somebody has wanted to try that, they have probably already done that. So I'll just show how you can do that. So it's kind of common, really simple. First idiot trap. So we need to just get in. So let's say if you just submit, you'll be told that you also need to submit email. And I'm just using my my email with a suffix. So let's see if I get a nice VPS. Yes, and as you can probably guess that creating VPSs on a VPS platform is mostly about devising a name for your host. So that took most of my time for that script. So this is actually if you're looking for, I think it's a fake video game name generator, and another toolkit which is creating alliterative animal names. So, but that's a server that was generated for me. If I copy the address and to a ping, I should see. Okay, the link copying wasn't the smartest thing. So let's see when it comes up. And I have there a couple of more things that I'm using in these occasions, and also for what I'm using. Okay, we got up. So the trick now is to get in. Okay, we can also see what's there. There's probably a WordPress site, and which does have a really cool facepalm deserving 0 day. Again, this server you are welcome to trash, but don't try to get WordPress security team to remove this vulnerable plugin from their repositories. It has stayed there for 8 years, it's probably already going to school, and in a couple of years will be able to participate in voting. So let's keep 0 days being 0 days for more years. I think I found that in 2017. I have informed about that for a couple of times. So I have done all of the responsible disclosure things. So I can now happily just keep using it as my sample 0-day vulnerability for 5 years. So, but we can get into the server by doing the SSH to Mayhem at whatever is the computer you got up. Apparently, you can also you see also my, so you can if you want come and trash that. The password is Mayhem other way, so MAYhem reversed. So we got in here. So and I'll show you also what's in there from the server side in a bit better browsable way. I kind of like to have things in visual trees, not browsing around. So on this computer we have somewhere in var www HTML. We do have here set up with these same tools. So if you want, you can play around here with files. This is also a place where you can try to install the WordPress plugin and see what changes. So if we go there and look at the ctimer, then we probably have this file. I have touched all to the same moment, so to make it not easy to see if there is anything problematic, because I'd like to finish this thing by showing another stupid script of mine to clean up the things. But before that, I've got here a couple of other things. First, there is the dumpsec, which is logging everything which you might be interested. So if the Mayhem tries to log in with a stupid password, and you are the one who has to tell the user that this is not a good life choice to have such passwords, then here, currently the password is masked, but if you want to be really evil, you can of course change the dumpsec to show it fully. But I have here on this server another interesting setup. Namely, it has mod security that is configured to save all of the post requests. Again, what could possibly go wrong by saving unsanitized post requests? But that's the brave thing I'm doing for you. So we can actually go and see from the audit logs and see what was the password that was tried to enter. But before that, I'll show you another thing, which is which you can check how it's done on this server. Namely, as it has mod security, it often also looks like people are thinking that, okay, mod security, let's put on also OWASP core rule set rules to make sure nobody can hack my server. Well, bad news is that they still can, but the good users will probably get some errors. So let's put myself once into the shoes of a good user who is coming to the website and trying to search something. So let's say, so it should be probably, I think the WordPress search is something like that. Yeah. Okay, but we are not looking for blah. We are actually looking for ways to execute, see if we can somehow gain access from here to whatever. Let's see, vpconfig.php. Wait, sorry. Oops. Apparently, there was a firewall action that triggered and served to me a really nice error page. Now, this is actually something that I copied from what was done to Estonian government portals when they switched to Drupals and forgot to pen test them before going live. So there started to happen a lot of problems. And the first solution was to, okay, let's add more security and web application firewall. And the second problem was then the actual users not being able to do their work. So what they did was create a very simple error handler that is, I think they had it a bit more obfuscated than my case, that was running on users who were able to run JavaScript. Turns out that despite search engines being able to run also JavaScript, most of them don't at least run requests like that. So I'm very rarely getting any false positive notices. How would I get the false positive notices? Well, that's a tool that's sitting here in the WAF handler. And it does have this nice feature of when somebody hits the 403 error, they send me an email. Yes, this functionality could be used to trash my mailbox, but don't do that. I just show how it works. So if I have it here, I think something like monitoring might be nice at gmail.com. So, and now that it's saved, we can try to, where was my browser window? So we can just try to, not use this one, but this one. So let's try to do whatever, maybe have a different kind of, see if we can access something like that. Again, there's an error. And if I look to my let's see. Oh, okay, this probably went into spam, I think. Yes, it's of course in the spam. So I was looking for it in different places, but here is the report that has been sent from this test server, and is reporting that there has been bash in search argument present. So this is what is kind of, for me, a user-friendly way of protecting users from all kinds of these troubles of being caught by web application firewalls. Now, what else do we have on the server? Well, let's see, where was my FTP client, and where could we have log files? I think we have log files log, and I think it's under Apache. And we have here again some more log files, which brave people are probably tackling with grep, awk, sed, and other cool tools. But maybe there is a better way. So here is the error log. So Mod Security is putting all of its shit in here. And actually, the moment when your content side people come screaming that the website editor doesn't work and they can't actually publish their whatever ministers or prime minister's next speech, then you need to actually dig through this kind of error log very quickly. And if you are not a test site, then it will be probably already megabytes of log file to troll through. So what to do with that? For that, I have again some sample patterns that I'm using. And let's grab the correct spectics. And I have, okay, I have here, actually I have here 3 labs. The first one is, which is also happening on this server. So as I mentioned at the beginning, that I'm using to find out which calls are running PHP by looking at some specific parameters to our hosting. So what I did here is I added to generic Apache's log. I didn't have time to find a nice way to capture actually FPM's time, but I added the parameter percentage big R, which is adding the information about the handler that Apache was using to serve this request. So basically, there is redirect handler, there is FPM proxy, and the minus means that there's no handler. That was a static file. So the sample, if you are taking the files from these VPSs, then ta-da! I'm trying to. I have 4 monitors, so I'm sorry if I lose some of my browser windows in my room. So here is the better view handler, and I'm using the similar log file that I was showing you, but I have already copied it to my shared Spectic server, where we can see that we can easily filter out the requests that are only the ones which are running PHP. Why favicon ICO is running PHP? Well, there is no favicon ICO on this server, so WordPress is catching over and dealing with that. But we are really seeing that we are not getting any images or CSS files. That's thanks to the fact that I'm filtering here the requests that that have this handler as null. If you want to play with that on your own, then there is also the specific slightly modified Apache's log file here. But I came here to help you find out how to find the errors that are happening. So for that, I have here another example, which is taking this using Apache's error log, taking the Hacky sites error log again, copied during the preparation. So I'm not copying the one which we saw here. We could move that also later. And here we are seeing that these are the requests. In fact, I think I don't care about these two IDs, which are the IDs of anomaly scoring. So we can just look at the requests that are having trouble. So here is the data which is actually causing the trouble, and we can move with this information we can move on and write list rules to mod security OWASP core rule set, but this is not a topic for today's talk. So that's finding out. Now the interesting part is how that has been done, because the log file is a bit stupid. The error log, as I did show you, is mostly garbage. So it starts with some error level, process ID, which component caused it, and then the mod security is taking pain to put a lot of things in square brackets, which are basically key, some form of key value pairs coming. So in this case, the rule is error log. I think this is this sample, which is catching out everything from the key value pairs. And nicely, when we earlier looked at all kinds of things which you can get out of Spectix by just having log information, by just discrete parts of logs. Here it is doing it in a way that I have here already selected, but if we probably we can do it like that, so we can remove that and see if we can see. So here is everything that we caught from the log file. Is running as nice named array, in my case named attributes. So I can access all of these parts from this log sheet. And actually, for me, as I've had to deal with the question of, from one side, promoting usage of web application firewalls, and dealing with customers unhappy, then this is a really great way of getting the information into easily visualizable way. But there's also the question that I did log some other information into the mod security's audit log, namely everything in the post requests. They are not in the error log because in our zones configuration, platform configuration, the log file is usually accessible in the web server for clients, meaning also for attackers. So we don't want attackers to know that we are logging all of the post requests, or this particular site is logging. So I'm using this only logging to hidden audit log. And the last sample I'm going to show you from here is exactly looking at these log files. I have here, we can look at the Hacktoties sample, but I have also here today's requests for my own websites. So the same things you saw in the dump sec. And again, in this case, I've configured the Apache or mod security to log audit log as JSON, not as their custom format, which probably can also be parsed, but isn't so nice. And here I have, oh sorry, audit log, and if I take a row, so here is all of the answer of the all of the audit log of mod security, available in a nicely formatted way because it's coming as JSON. We could also probably use a JSON viewer, and yes, on command line you can also parse JSON and select information from there. But again, why use CitySec when you can use better tools that actually save you time and also are more accessible to more people? Because finding people who are able to use grep, this is a very expensive kind of people who know actually how to use grep. I've been with from our, let's say, experience with 40,000 websites, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of developers. If I get them to look at the log file in in the format of Excel exported from Spectix, I'm already in heaven. Usually they are just coming back next day and asking me for a next Excel file, which I'm happy to provide because it's, for me, it's a couple of lines of shell. So, but here we are seeing the request that has come in, and here we are seeing again the same login attempts that we saw earlier in this dumpsec log, but in this time they are not logged nicely in a place and a way which is better to handle systematic. And what I especially like, and what is my, I think, one of my next projects, when I did the presentation in January, there was a question about next talk, and I'm actually planning something for end of summer or fall to work more on the question of using exactly this way of logging on honeypots, the traffic coming from scanners and looking for different kinds of vulnerabilities. So I'm trying to turn this information into better mod security rules to protect our farm. So okay, yeah. Joachim mentioned me. Uh, mm, there is a question how you upload initially the log files in Spectix. Okay, I'll show you in a second. I think I can do it in a way that, let's see. I have my local Spectix instance, which is probably good for that. And for that, I have configured here under system a data store, just by telling that data store is oh, sorry, data stores Spectix, sorry. I think configure. Yeah, so I have on my desktop or on whatever preferable location, I do have the log files folders. So basically, with all of these samples that work exactly the same way on my local install and on the remote install, I'm using in the samples, which are from here like these. I'm using here as the source location the file Spectix, which is just this data store that points to the folder on my desktop. Yes, my desktop looks like a total mess. And in this way, all of the log files are just accessible from this location. There is, of course, a lot of better solutions for data stores. The list of these is here. I think a lot of their own examples are using S3. You can access files over SSH, which probably isn't the best solution for processing large log files. And there is possibility to access Elasticsearch. So I was experimenting with Elasticsearch. Unfortunately, I think I can't find the example quickly. So we started doing some internal scans for our farm to find Elastic instances forgotten open and without password. So I just I was thinking that how to access that? What's the easiest way to just access the raw Elasticsearch server? And of course, it was just using the Spectix to connect to this particular server we had found from our scan. And can anybody predict what we found inside Elasticsearch server? Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And the answer of what's inside a common Elasticsearch server without password is ransom note, of course. So if there is a unprotected server, you probably are going to get possibility to pay Bitcoins to get your server back. So this is how it works. We are kindly nearing the time of 2.5 hours. That and I presume people are already thinking about going and grabbing their beers. So currently is a nice point to ask any questions on workshop chat or questions channel. So I can possibly find some more nuances to tell you about the tools. But as I mentioned, all of the yeah, and everything is on what it was, ctimer decaf patio files. So there's the README and all of the things that I showed are accessible from these GitHub repos or gists. And there may be with them sometimes a problem that some things may be a bit specific to our platform. For example, I noticed that my code here of this WAF handler, which is nicely sending emails. Oh, by the way, it also has support for Slack channel. Perhaps you noticed from code. I almost was coming to the point of thinking how I can integrate that to the today's chat, because there's also possibility to put to Discord, but I didn't have time for that. But anyway, some of these may. Yeah, and yeah, Joachim is mentioning I could actually add this these links also to the chat. So to summarize, try for yourself. So yes, let's see. Oh, come on. Yes, so the link is also now on the chat. I should have actually added them earlier also there. I kind of forgot with all of the monitors, all of the places. But yes, that's if there is no more questions, then that's the story of today. I'll be leaving all of the instances that you see here up. I will remove the C timer from the Wuhan tomorrow to just, and please don't trash the server until that. But you can try and see all of the parts for yourself and play with the SpectX instance and get your own versions, because, and I'm not to make it clear, I'm not a SpectX salesman. I think they're paying customer number 2 or something like that. I had a very special price thanks to Rene, but I have been really paying customer way before they came out with pricing plans that are accessible to non-enterprise customers, which I think happened now a couple of months ago, around the time when they also had the chance to publish some nice patterns for dealing with the exchange problem. What was the name? The Chinese. Extracting the Chinese from your exchanges. So from that time, I'm really happy that for past 2 years I had to tell that, okay, this is a cool tool. Go and find yourself an enterprise job where you can actually get some people to buy that for you. And now I think the pricing for entry-level commercial accounts is comparable to, let's say, server license for New Relic or another tool. So it is very accessible and making my life much easier, and making learning log analysis in this way easier, and also making it possible to deal with logs in a manner of incident handling. Because while I could prepare a possibility to send everything to Elkstack or somewhere, I don't know what and when exactly I need, and I don't know the questions I'm going to ask log files. So I just like to run them against the raw files and find the answers, basically like I did today. And as there don't seem to be any more questions, then I will remain online. I'll actually go downstairs and grab a beer. So if there are any questions later in the chat channels, then hit me up. I'll be happy to answer in written form. And until that, thanks for everybody for joining and watching. I hope you learned something new, and I hope the presentation was in a format where you can actually copy paste the components and try them out on your Monday's actual job. So with that, I'm leaving you with your beers. I'm going to grab my beer. And I think there is also a closing video to be shown, but I recall, I think the first video was wrong one, supposedly. So maybe you are going to get 2 videos for the price of 1. So see you, and hopefully I can show you something cool after the summer break. Bye-bye.
Sky.